up, you guys? I'm Shekinah, aka the Purpose Therapist, and this is Journey to Joy. I realized, like, from conversations with clients and friends, family members, whomever, the concept of joy seems almost unattainable, and I want to remind you that you can and you will. And I want to also help you by identifying or being kind of transparent about experiences that I've had or things that have been obstacles for me to get to joy, and how if we kind of like identify these areas, we can start to navigate and push through and get to a place of like just true, pure, and real joy. So that is what this conversation is all about today. And today's topic is self-doubt. Ooh, yes, that. So for myself, the conversation of self-doubt is an everyday thing. It's almost like I have to wake up and say, Shekinah, okay, boom, who are you going to be today, right? With the understanding that sometimes there might be some other type of like navigating, not navigating, some word I want to use, some other type of things that interrupt how I can show up in a day. Things like rejection, things like opportunities that I might have missed or felt like I missed, having overwhelming anxious thoughts about like my worthiness of a space, or having those like situations where you kind of like second guess if you're worthy, or like your limit to what you can actually do. All these things show up and then block me, almost like a red light, from doing a thing, trying to push through an idea or anything like that. For a perfect example, this series that you're getting now was something that I was supposed to have done in October of last year. It is 2023. This was a thought that I had in 2022, and the camera, the thing, all the things were in place to be able to do the thing, and I just never did it because there was so much self-doubt about the reception of this thing, or there was so much self-doubt about whether or not I need to have a conversation about this, or whether these things would be useful, or even if what I was saying was really was an issue for anyone. So all these things come and they kind of like interrupt how you can show up based off of what your mind is allowing you to believe about yourself. And so, like, as I've been kind of on this journey of identifying who I am as a therapist, identifying who I am as a daughter, a friend, a woman, all these different things, there's all these different narratives that show up to try to block the idea of who I want to be versus who I am. And like, it makes it seem like it's so far away, like you'll never get there, you'll never be that person or anything like that. So what I want to do in this space is be able to share different things that I've been able to do, or different tips, if you will, to help us navigate those moments of like extreme self-doubt, and navigate those moments of really fear attached to the self-doubt, and how we can start to reframe how we show up for ourselves and other people, right? So one of the biggest things that helped me, honestly, and is still helping me to this day, is seeing a therapist around this. Now, we've had conversations about other things that have happened prior to me starting to see a therapist, but the real conversation around me and the self-doubt journey and like reframing my thinking has been through the help of cognitive behavioral therapy, honestly. When I started understanding what cognitive distortions were, and when I started understanding how like catastrophizing is a thing, and black and white thinking is a thing, and mind reading is a thing, and all these different pieces, when I started to identify those things in myself, oh my gosh, I was like, that's it. That's me. That is me. I am the person. This is the thing that I'm dealing with, right? And so being able to identify that was a huge issue for me. The barrier was my thoughts, right? And me having to start doing the work to reframe my thoughts, that was like a game changer. It changed the game for real. If you think about it this way, your words trigger thoughts, your thoughts trigger emotions, your emotions trigger actions. If I want to start being this like mega, like super huge, like confident, wise, just big ball of greatness, for lack of better words, I had to start to reframe my thinking about who I was and what my limits were, right? Self-doubt couldn't even have no space over here because my faith had to be on 10 about who I was and what that looked like. Which brings us to my next point, right? I might be able to identify all these cognitive distortions and things like that, but the thing that really transformed my thinking, I'm gonna bring it because it's right here next to me, was this, okay? This right here. Biblia, all right, the Bible. And the reason why was because there's certain scriptures that I had to have to reframe my thinking about certain things. Like that was something that was happening in accompaniment with my therapy. Therapy and the Lord together are the things that have been reframing my thinking, okay? Therapy and the Lord together. Those things together have been the things that have helped me to start to show up differently, move differently, think about certain things differently. That was what happened for me. Now, for you, it might be something different, but like literally that has been my thing. And so when I started to identify this distorted thinking and distorted thoughts that I was having about myself, it wasn't just the thoughts that I was having about myself over here that was helping me and like reframing myself as far as like the conversation I was having with my therapist, but then it was also me being able to sit on the foundation about what does God say that I am, right? Those two together, game changer. And so then once I started being like again, we talk about the being proactive about the thing. Once I identified that this was my thing, like it's not about, I watched this Kanye documentary. I love Kanye West. He's amazing. And yes, I'm gonna stick to that. I'm gonna stick with that. I love him. He's awesome, right? And I was raised on him, and I loved his music when I was like a younger as well. So like my first CD I ever got was College Dropout. So and Late Registration was like a little bundle thing for Christmas. But anyway, point is that I love him. But so I watched this documentary, and in that documentary, I watched the conversation he was having with his mom. His mom said the realest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, or one of the realest things I've ever heard in my entire life. And I make reference to it a lot because I think it's more powerful than we realize. But she was talking to Kanye, and she was talking about like his attitude and like how he's been acting, And she said this, and she looked at him and she told him that like the giant doesn't see himself. And I think self-doubt is that. Self-doubt is us walking around with almost blinders on, not fully being aware of how heavy we are in this earth and how tall we are, how big we are, how strong we are in this earth in comparison to whatever circumstances we're dealing with, right? So when it comes down to us getting to these mountains, we look at the mountain like, oh my gosh, this is huge, but it's like, really, what is a mountain to a giant? You see what I'm saying? Like if you're a giant and you moving like that and that's who you really are and you believe that's who you are, it makes these things that seem so huge a lot smaller, but we have to get into a place where we tap into that faith around who we are. And so like when I had that conversation of self-doubt, now it still happens all the time. Like even like I got my license last week and I'm still like, what license profession? What does that even mean? You see what I'm saying? Something I worked on for 2.5 years, 3,000 hours later, and I'm still like trying to wrap my head around the idea that that's actually where I'm at and who I am. But I gotta reframe my thinking about those things. I have to come a little harder than that. Like, no, I'm above and not beneath, the head and not the tail. You see what I'm saying? All things have been working for my good because I believe in God, because I have my faith. I have the power to overcome the world, and the things that give me that power is my faith. Like, it's like, wait, huh? You see what I'm saying? I had to get in that mode, and then I had to not just get in that mode for myself, but I had to start surrounding myself around people who are in that mode too. Like, if you really are in that idea that that's the thought that you have around who you're supposed to be and what they're supposed to look like, your spaces should reflect that, right? You know a person by their fruit, but you also, like that birds of a feather flock together, iron sharpens iron, that's another thing too. You know what I'm saying? So being able to be in those spaces with people that also like reflect this person that I'm becoming and reflect these spaces that I'm ready to be in and reflect this identity that I have for myself, right? Partners, whoever, all that stuff needs to reflect where you're going. And so while I have been, navigating this space for myself, that has been a very, very critical and pivotal part for me, is identifying like whatever distorted thinking thoughts I might be having. So that's like my first thing. Identify, like, if you're struggling with self-doubt, go look up cognitive distortions, right? There's all types of like lists of it, right? And then I want you to also separately write on a sheet of paper who you are, right? And what you think, who you are, and how do you think you impact the world? Like, write that down, right? Or how do you think you show up, right? And then I want you to take those cognitive distortions and compare it to who your description of yourself is. And before you know it, I bet you can find some catastrophizing, you can find some mind reading, you can find some personalization, you can find some spaces of like extreme distorted thinking that's interrupting your narrative of you. And the thing is, you get a chance to rewrite that story as many times as you want. Every day you wake up, it's an opportunity for you to rewrite the story of you. Who are you? How you want to show up? You decide to do that every single day, right? And so that's step number one. Step number two, whatever distorted thoughts you figured out that you found, or like things that you're struggling with as far as like you're thinking of yourself, create affirmations based off of those. Create a storyline based off of those. Create some type of like series of conversations for yourself that can help you reframe that thinking, right? And reframe how you show up in the beginning, at the very top of your day. And then put a timer or an alarm on your phone, like put an alarm on your phone where literally you remind yourself of those things. So whether that be, you can put one for 12 o'clock at your lunch break, put one before you get ready to go to bed, put one when you wake up in the morning. Set yourself up, right? Be proactive about that thing, and you decide how you want this train of thought to go. You decide how you want that to be framed. self-doubt, fear, all those things, literally, it sounds really cliche, but on the other side of that is the best version of you, like straight up. And so if you allow it to be that block, it'll stay there. But as soon as you start to remind yourself of who you are, whose you are, and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, you can start to reframe and change everything about anything. You can do whatever you want, whoever you want. And the joy that you look for in that space, because it's really joy is attached to an understanding of the fullness of all of the gifts and all of the love and all the amazing things that make up your life, right? It's attached to that space. And the joy can be internally, it could be a overflowing internal fountain as soon as you allow yourself to recognize it before you recognize the other spaces. So put yourself in a position to see the joy, and it'll automatically separate you from the doubt and the fear and anything else that's trying to stand in the way of you and your best self. This is Shekinah, aka the Purpose Therapist, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.